Why I got Starlink. Today I go through the reasons why and how I was able to set up Starlink. I've gone ahead and divided this video up into separate chapters so that you can go ahead and scroll along to what bits you want to watch and what info you need. Let's begin. Part 1. Why I had to change my provider. For many years I had been with Virgin Media, who are an ISP internet service provider, providing fibre internet in my local area. However, in February, I was left without internet for 2 weeks. This would be okay, but it also left me without a landline telephone or television as well, as they provide all three. As the landline was unavailable, Virgin Media were unable to acknowledge my account and only sent engineers after a neighbour of mine who also had Virgin Media had contacted support. After engineers had checked out the boxes in my local area, it turned out that there were major issues that would require them to dig up the road in order to replace damaged cables and signal amplifiers. This would involve getting in contact with the local council, who would then have to grant them permission to go ahead, dig up the roads, have roadworks, traffic lights and all that stuff. So obviously this would take some time. Some of you may be asking, well, why not use mobile data? Well, I'm actually well ahead of you there. I did have a 4G LTE dongle thing that you would plug into your computer and allow you to access through the mobile networks. However, after plugging it in, I found that the mobile signal was not 4G. You can't get 4G out here. And there was only like one single bar on the older signal meter. So I went ahead anyway, did a speed test, but the upload speed, it was only 180 kilobits a second. This is more or less unusable for modern day applications of the internet. You can't stream with this, you can't watch videos of this. You may be able to do some text stuff like emails, but that's about it. Anyway, after looking into the Virgin Media account, I also found that the cost has risen to over £150 per month. And I'm not even paying for like the sports package or the movie package or anything like that. You know what these companies do? They keep egging up the price every now and then. You got to keep an eye on those companies. You know, it'll just go up and up and up, and that ain't good, is it? So obviously, I need to find an alternative, which we'll discuss in the next part. Part 2. Who can do me providings? Here in the UK, internet has primarily been provided by British Telecom, or BT, who had set up the telephone network infrastructure in the past. Sometimes these would be referred to as the GPO, or General Post Office, as they were back then. These phone lines were used in the 90s to access internet via a modem, you know, the old 56k modem back in the day where you would put in the number and it will play this sound. However, with the introduction of ADSL broadband and now fibre broadband, this is no longer viable. BT, however, did set up a company called OpenReach, and that deals with all their infrastructure for their internet, providing fibre to more or less each and every part of the country. They provide not to the customer directly, they provide to other companies, whether it's Vodafone or Now or Sky or Pi or whatever, all these internet service providers, and then they sell it on to the customer. That seems to be how it works here. And this is why all the internet service providers provide the exact same speeds on their plans, and there's very little range of prices and whatnot. Then there's Virgin Media. I mean, in the late 90s, small cable companies provided TV and telephone services to people who wanted more than the 4 or 5 channels that were available at the time over the aerial, and for some reason or another weren't able to use the satellite services, whether They were Sky or BSB at the time. They're the ones with the funny square aerials, which look a little bit like the modern day Starlink dish, but they're totally different. Anyway, I'll go into that in another video. Over time, these small companies like NTL or Telewest Broadband, to name a couple, would be brought up by Virgin Media, leading to Virgin becoming the monopoly of cable suppliers here in the UK. And in order to try and compete with BT, Virgin were the first to roll out fibre throughout parts of the UK. And they were offering super fast speeds of like up to 30 megabits. At the time, 30 megabits was miles ahead of anybody else in the field. And also at this time, other companies using BT's open reach infrastructure at the time, they were caught over-promising on their speeds and whatnot. As an example, back when I was using Sky Broadband, which uses the BT infrastructure, I was paying for 8 megabits a second download speed. They stated that I would only get about 6 megabits, but in reality I would only be getting 1 megabit. Nowadays, in my area, Virgin are providing speeds of up to 1 gigabit down, and any other provider using the OpenReach infrastructure at the moment can only get up to about 67 megabits down. That's quite a bit of difference. Now, you might say, 67 megabits? That's good. But you need to remember over here in Britain that this is a download speed. And download speeds are normally between 8 and 10 times the speed of the upload speed, which would mean that the fastest upload speed I would get from OpenReach would be about 6 megabits per second, if I'm lucky. And as you know, I'm someone who does a load of live streaming, whether it's over here on YouTube, or if it's on Twitch, or Rumble, or Odyssey, or any of the other platforms I use. I really want a minimum upload speed of about 20 megabits per second. This will also allow for future live streams being in higher resolutions and possibly even in HDR where available. Also, at the same time, I would be needing to connect to VoIP systems, whether it's Text Now or Skype or something like that. And I would also need some bandwidth for the virtual machines to connect with remote connections and all that stuff that I do on a live stream. If you haven't checked out those live streams, make sure you do. I'll leave links in the description of where I'm live and where I'm not. There is also mobile internet, but I've already mentioned that there is no suitable coverage in my area about this. We're just still getting 3G out here, I think. And then there's Starlink, details of which I'll go into later in the video. But I'm going to display on screen now some details about the options I have open to me, including the price, the speed, the contract length, etc. So as you can see here, we got Virgin with a speed of about 1100 megabits per second. Their contract length is 18 months and with a price of £45 a month. Of course, that's going to go up every single month, you know what they're like. Then you've got any of the OpenReach providers here. They seem to offer a max speed of about 67 megabits download. Again, they have 18-month contracts at £25 a month. And then there's the mobile internet providers. Free seems to be the main one over here right now. They're offering speeds of 14 megabits down on a 12-month contract for £25 a month. At first, Starlink required you to purchase equipment at the cost of over £460. However, they've reduced this to £300 now, because I've just checked on their website. And also there is an option to rent for £15 a month. This is the option I've gone for, mainly because I didn't want to end up with like a giant paper rate if old Dishy wasn't suitable for me. Part 3. What to do before ordering Starlink. Before ordering Starlink, you've got to ask yourself the following. 1. Can I get a good signal? 2. Can I get a better speed with a local fibre provider? And 3. Do I have enough room to get Dishy up? Answer to the first question, well, there is a simple way to find this out. Firstly, download the Starlink app into your phone, whether you're using the iPhone or Android. It's probably in the App Store or Google Play Store. Now what you got to do, once you've got it installed, swipe right and click on Find a Location. Now what you've got to do is you've got to point your phone to the sky. And you've got to move it around, scanning the sky. You'll see all these little dots come towards your phone there on the screen. Now this will scan for any obstructions. Just a little hint, if you're living in the Northern Hemisphere like me, Dishy is going to be facing north. So you've got to put it on the north side of your house. Make sure that there's plenty of sky available. There's no trees blocking the way or anything like that. Also, I'm going to display a map here of the coverage of Starlink in the UK. You may notice that there's like a sudden line. And all above that line, there doesn't seem to be many Starlinks flying overhead. So if you're in Scotland, I'm not sure if it'll be a good idea for you. If anybody here is from Scotland and are using Starlink, please comment down below and let me know what your dealings are with Starlink up there in Scotland. To answer the second question, if you're in an urban area, you may find that cable providers and fibre providers are more suitable because they are more suited to an urban environment. Remember to check online, see what deals are available in your local area. And to answer the third question, Dishy, that's the name given to the Starlink dish, is much smaller than you might think. It measures in at about 19 inches by 12 inches. That's about 50 centimetres by 30 centimetres for you metric guys over here. And due to the little pole hanging from underneath it, you can easily hold it with one hand while you're climbing a ladder or something. So once you've found a place to put Dishy, you can create a Starlink account and place your order. But remember, the Starlink router only has a wireless connection. If you want a wired connection, make sure you order the Ethernet adapter as well at the same time. Also, make sure to order any bracking mounts that you require, whether it's a pole mount or if it's an arm that sticks out of the side of house. You've got the long arm connector and the short arm connector. Both are available there on the Starlink website. Once ordered, it should just take a couple of days to be delivered, and that's all the way from California to the UK by DHL. Just takes a couple of days. It doesn't take long at all. So now we just wait. Part 4. Unboxing and setup. When Starlink arrives, it'll be in a box like this. Let's open it up, see what's inside. Okay, here we go. The first thing we see is the mounting feet, the mounting bracket, I guess you could say. And here we see like the main dish itself. Let's just get it out of the box. Like I said, it's pretty small. It's only 19 inches by 12 inches and 19 inches by 12 inches. And you see the little pole thing come out the bottom there. That's all good. And then underneath that, we've got instructions here. We've got power cable and the cable to go from the router to the dish. And of course, we got the router here. Not too bad. It looks all angular and white and it looks pretty nice. Okay, now that we've got it unboxed, here's how we're going to install it. First of all, we feed the Starlink cable through the hole in the stand. Go ahead and plug the cable into Dishy. And we attach Dishy to the stand here. It will only go in one way and just click in place. So, it's pretty simple to do. Okay, so now that we've got Dishy up, we're going to feed the cable from here in the where I've got it. I've got it set on the roof of the garage, so I just need to feed the cable along and into the house where it's going to connect to the router. In fact, I'd tell a lie there, we're not going to connect it directly to the routers first of all because we have got this Ethernet adapter. I ordered this at the same time because I want to connect it to a new home network that I'm setting up. So what we're going to do here, we're going to connect the cable into the Ethernet adapter, and then we're connecting the Ethernet adapter into the Starlink router like so. Then we're going to go ahead and put in the power cable into the Starlink router, I should say. Once to do that, you'll see a little white LED on the bottom of the router. That means everything's working. Right, now we're going to go into the mobile phone here. Just log into the Starlink app and click Start Setup. Just going to allow it each and everything. Just basically follow the instructions. They're pretty straightforward. It's going to ask us to connect it to the network. Okay, so that's done. Right. Now, as it's setting itself up, you may see, if you keep an eye on Dishy out there, it will start to move by itself. This is all perfectly normal. It's just going to align itself with the satellites. It may take a little while to do, but, you know, after a couple of minutes, everything should be all right. And, of course, after a couple of minutes, we can go ahead and start a little speed test. So we just go ahead here and go into the settings. Select speed test. Here we go. So, yeah, I'm going to leave the results on the screen here. Part 5. Advanced Settings and Home Network Layout. Now that I have Starlink set up, here is what I have done to set up a suitable home network. As you can see here, the Starlink router is at one end of the house. The wireless network will not really reach through the walls to the other end of the house, so therefore I have an Ethernet adapter connected via the power outlet to another router on the other side of the house. I'm using here a TP-Link power line adapter because I find this easier than feeding Cat6 or Cat7 cable all the way through the house. It's just so much easier to do. The other router I've got here for setting up this home network is a Linksys Mesh Wi-Fi 6 dual band router. It's an AX1800 router and it was on offer from Amazon, so I thought, you know, might as well just grab that. And this router can be used as part of a mesh network, so if I want to expand later, I can easily do that. Just log into the Linksys app and get it all set up on mesh, but at the moment I'm just keeping it with this one. Okay, so here we see the Ethernet cable come out of the power line and it will go into the yellow port on this router. Yellow seems to be the default one for the incoming internet connection on most routers, I find. So here I've disconnected all of the wired devices, the Ethernet devices, from my old Virgin router into this new Linksys one. If you want another video into the details of setting up this, let me know in the comments. Part 6. Real life usage. Over the past few weeks, I've been using the following whilst connected to the Starlink: Discord, Skype, OBS Studio, some crypto mining software. I've been online gaming on PS5, GTA Online mostly, and other software like VirtualBox, for example. Now, I've found that VoIP service, whether it's TextNow, Skype, Discord, I've had no real issues with connection or latency. When I use mining software, in this case I'm using Unmineable to mine some of that Dogecoin, if you know what I mean. That's had no issues either, but mind you, that really doesn't use much network. Running virtual machines on VirtualBox has seen some issues. However, I think this is mainly due to the way I've got VirtualBox set up, because it's only an intermittent thing. Gaming online, using PlayStation 5 to play GTA Online, has had no more issues than I would normally have with a wired connection. OBS Studio. As many of you know, I do a lot of live streaming both here on Twitch and other platforms, and lately I've displayed Starlink stats whilst live streaming. Well, I found that on Twitch I've had no issues with streaming H.264 at 1080p 30 frames a second. I've had streams lasting over 3 hours without losing a single frame. That's using a bitrate of about 4,000 kilobits a second. However, I found on YouTube I've lost the following. I've lost about 10% of the frames streaming H.264 at 1080p 30 frames a second with a bitrate of 4,000. And I'm even losing 10% of the frames streaming with the same codec, the same resolution, but at 3600 a second. So what I ended up doing, I ended up changing how I stream on YouTube. I've gone from H.264 to H.265. This allows for less use of the network, higher compression, that kind of thing. So I found that if I stream at H.265 at a resolution of 1080p, 30 frames a second, at 32 kilobits a second, I lose about 1% of the frames, which is a big improvement. And also, I lose less than 1% of the frames if I stream in H.265 at the same resolution, 1080p by 30 frames, at a bitrate of 2500 kilobits a second. Now that's the compression of this new codec being advantageous to us. Because I don't know if you remember the old days of me live streaming. When I would live stream at 720p, I would be doing that at 2500 kilobits a second, which is the same as the bitrate I'm using here for 1080p. And this 1080p is much better than those old 720p streams. If you would like a separate video into my OBS settings, let me know in the description and I'll sort something out. Part 7. Conclusion. So after using Starlink for a few weeks, here's my final thoughts. Got some pros here. It's faster than OpenReach, at least in my location. It's easy to set up. There's no long-term contract. You know, if you just want to use it for a month and send it back, that's fine. They charge you on a month thing, but yeah, that's all good. It's got fast delivery. I was amazed at how quickly the delivery came through all the way from California in only around about 48 hours. It was just like it was more or less instant. I think that's thanks to DHL though. Another pro, equipment is now available for rental. If you don't want that upfront cost of, was it £460, paying $15 a month is much better. I mean, if we were to calculate it, it would take over 30 months in order to pay the same amount in rental as you would in purchasing it. And of course, who knows how far advanced it'll be in 30 months. It may be a whole new system, as this is a system which is still launching satellites into space and still doing each and everything. There are some cons though. You do need a wide screen of the sky without any trees or anything. I think you need about 100 degrees view facing north if you're in the northern hemisphere. And of course, I don't know how good it is up in Scotland because there are fewer satellites up there in Scotland. There are occasional dropouts when it comes to latency, but that's only because it is a satellite system and it's understandable. It's not a cable system, so it's not hardwired in ready to go. And also, one other con, there is no wired connection on the router. There used to be on the old version ones, but I don't know why they dropped that. It seems to be a stupid idea, to be honest, but it really does need a wired connection. So if you ever do order it, I advise get that Ethernet adapter. Starlink seems to be a good replacement for your internet service provider. However, it is not without its own issues. But an ever-increasing number of new satellites in LEO, that's low Earth orbit, including new improved satellites that can handle more data being sent up into space all the time. It seems to me that this will be a real contender to traditional internet service providers. Thanks for watching the video. Let me know in chat about your experiences with Starlink. And let me know if you would like to see more of these videos. That's all from me. Ta-ta for now.